Well met, lords and ladies. Jacob Potter speaking, and a wet welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. I almost said warm like usual, but I don't think that's going to be appropriate today. So yeah, we were in the middle of a cold spurt, and during that, it started snowing. It's calmed itself down now. It's just mildly raining right now, bit of a drizzle, essentially. So everything ahead of me is perfectly fine, which is more than I can say for the task at hand, which of course for me for the past almost 2 weeks now has been almost exclusively the Mutant Girl remake. So last week I went over the resignation of William and how that particular really long scene, which had been assigned to him a while ago to make sure that it was up to standard, and while I sorted out other things like my own selected scene, the deleted one from all that time ago, and how being suddenly the only person who would be able to do that scene within the time that was left, and that would also be active enough to respond, and how that set me back. I would actually amend a bit of that statement. So I say that I was the only person who would be quick enough to respond and everything, but that's honestly not the case, because Aiden has been coming through leaps and bounds. Like he has picked up the slack that everyone else has left behind, minus the voice actors, because that's a whole other ordeal that I've also been dealing with at the exact same time. So yeah, I just want to quickly, before I carry on, really just give a special thanks and a shout out to Aiden DeBest, without whom this remake really would not be happening on time, honestly. My initial plan was to do an advert for new editors, considering that 2 of the ones that we've got right now are inactive. 3 of the ones were inactive. 2 I would expect, the other one has ceased communication for... I imagine the reason, honestly, but I would have rather have had an update about it first before it happened, before the departure happened. And that's it. That's the other 3 editors who are left on the team, which means that I guess it's just kind of like the good old days. It was just me and Aiden against the world for like 2 episodes in 2020, and then Monet joined us, and then our productivity went up significantly. So who knows, maybe we just need one more editor. I just need to go back to doing the traditional filming method, rather than the one that, ironically enough, William himself started to do. And that's what I intend after I finish this scene. Because I think I mentioned this before, but since William's scene was incomplete, it's not necessarily that he went in order and was incomplete that way. No, because of the method that he and I have both been using recently, it was the case that throughout several sections of the video, there were some characters who would be there on screen and others who would not, but also have lines, which means that the whole sequence had to be accounted for there. Because I'm making an effort to improve everything at the same time, that meant that the visual that I know that William would be able to pull off almost in his sleep, I had to learn an entire new software to actually improve upon from before. And that was why I was talking about Fire Alpaca. I haven't touched Fire Alpaca in a while, apart from to do the odd thumbnail here and there. Because yeah, actually doing those white borders around the characters is much simpler than I thought. In fact, I could honestly see making Minecraft thumbnails would be way better now. So maybe Tales of Sir Nicanor would not be lumbered with the terribleness of my personal marketing of it. Not to mention the fact that I also discovered in Vegas how to actually take screenshots without using snipping tool, because I was a fool and didn't consider that there was an actual inbuilt feature to do that the entire time I was using it. Or at least the most updated version of it, probably several more before. So, needless to say, I've been through the rings recently, and that's still going on. Believe it or not, the scene itself is still unfinished. All the recordings are there, but I need to actually still sync them up, make sure that the other animations work, and you know, things like that. But honestly, I'm almost done. I thought I was able to finish it yesterday, in between family birthday celebrations. Not for myself, for someone else. But yeah, no, I've been, this is when Denethor contacts me and asks for, and well, he reminds me that I promised him an update on a certain something to do with the next video, which I can honestly prepare today. And then there's another person who wants my help professionally to do to workshop some dialogue stuff for a novel. Interesting that he asked me in an actor capacity rather than a writer. I thought that was where things were going, but no, apparently not. I get to think a little bit about that and find out about this plot synopsis. I hope I'll be good at that. It means a few earlier days within the week, but that should be fine because it's going to send me a timetable with him, and then we're going to agree on some of those things. And that was a call that I had today, and almost had yesterday if it weren't for a walk that went on for twice the amount of time from before, which of course also delayed the more editing, and here we are. I do have some good news though, and some bad news. The good news is that I have finally managed to get a new backup for Mrs. Dysart. Now, Mrs. Dysart has been really hard to cast pretty much consistently throughout, like, every single time that we've had to do that. Ever since Natasha's legendary portrayal, for better or worse, whether it's a good legend or if it's a bad legend, is up to interpretation, and over the years I have heard both versions extensively. But either way, it's very hard to capture that same energy, which is why she's been the most avoided character out of anyone. Like, there are a few people who are willing to step in as either backups or new replacements for character voices, but as soon as I mention the character as Mrs. Dysart, a lot of them shy away. And even the current Mrs. Dysart, one who I tried to contact on Snapchat of all places, still captures the essence a lot more for the Fallen Angels version of the character. But once you get back to the literal first season, because we're doing remakes, it becomes a bit harder to emulate. And that's the thing. But fortunately, we found someone who is actually a fan of the show, and who and who wanted to be as authentic as possible to the character, but also on top of that, without really telling me, actually gave her a little bit of that actual commanding presence and emotional variety that even Natasha didn't manage to capture. Because, of course, Natasha really was doing a comedic voice, and that's why the character changed drastically. Mrs. Dysart was always supposed to be a little eccentric, granted. Check out the snow here. But above all else, she was actually still supposed to do her job. So another aspect of Mrs. Dysart that's hard to emulate is just the lessons that she teaches. Because of course, that's not usually a part of voicing a gacha teacher, but it always was for me. So, yeah, very difficult to pull off. Some people over the years have overcompensated on the comedic side, to the point of being understandable, but that's fine, you know. She knows who she is. But regardless, I think actually you're going to be very happy with the new person. And that new person is Blackjack. I'm announcing that now, because it's not really a huge surprise. Whether or not she stays on for longer, that's up to her. We really didn't, just because it's all emergency casting, so I haven't really decided on that, or neither has she. We'll see how it goes, but it seems that, you know, she at least enjoyed the part, and potentially would be up for trying another time at some other point. But yeah, quite honestly, you might not need a Mrs. Dysart for a while, at least on the Mutant Girl side of things. As for Aiden, getting some of the Fallen Angels scenes going, this might be once again the time when his choice to keep all the characters in every single episode, almost, might come back to bite him. That's another thing there's been another reason why this remake has been so delayed. Because originally, of course, I was only going to do episode 4 until Aiden convinced me to do episode 5. One might consider, you know, the fact that he's lumped with all the other scenes now to be comic punishment for such a suggestion. But I can understand where he was coming from. And of course I still appreciate the work, because I've mentioned it already. But yeah, Aiden said that, of course, episode 4 still was a relatively short affair. Currently going through this scene right now, I would beg to differ personally, but whatever. And to split things up when we still had more editors to include episode 5, which again came back to bite us in the end. But yeah, they do kind of work in tandem at least. So, and one opens up right after the other. It might be a little bit jarring going forward, but I guess we'll take that risk when we need to. Which will be in 9 days, because that's how long we've got until the remake is supposed to be out. Yeah, that's why I've wanted to advertise for new editors. God, but yeah, now I might actually have to for this particular remake. As after I finish with the Williams scene, I've got one more scene to do, which of course is the deleted scene from all those years ago that I'm putting back in, because I am not missing out on introducing this plot point for a second time. And then also another scene, which is what brings me the bad news, is that we don't have a Kylie. Well, when we do have a Kylie, but the Kylie once again incommunicado, or incommunicado, I should say. So no luck. And Kylie only has 2 lines, but I mean, for crying out loud, I actually looked this up and Kylie only has 15 lines in the entire season 1. So, but yeah, regardless of that, it actually is still important to have those 2 lines in there. Pretty much everything. The reason that the episodes are so short in the first season, or at least shorter in comparison to the other ones that would happen later on. But really, I found that because of that, every scene counts. Remember how my mum said last week, could I remove certain elements out of this scene that I'm doing? And the answer is no. Not only is it the bulk of the episode, but also really like it builds up an entire point where the entire connection between Morwen and Marwick, and how that would progress later down the line. But yeah, the same is true really for the presentation. Like even Kylie's 2 lines are all about how Pop keeps an iron grip on the interests of the people who are involved. I'd rather not introduce who are in her gang. I'd rather not introduce that concept in the next scene and just have it seem like it comes out of nowhere. That's one thing that I've criticised a bunch of people for in the past, is having stuff come out of nowhere and never hinted. But yeah, perhaps as I'll go along later and keep working on season 3, there'll be parts that I can remove. I was going to go back to my season 3 scene for a bit while I waited for the other scenes of episode 4 to be included, but no. Oh, by the way, this is where I did my concert. It's now been revamped. A 2018 concert. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so I really am still trying to manage everything now. Because yeah, who knows? Because that scene itself is also relatively long. It has a bunch of characters in it. That's another thing that I was saying before about how Aiden's style might come back to bite him in the end, because actually, if you think about it, really, the issue with episode 5, that's the main one, is the fact that every character almost appears. I mean, Empress doesn't, but you know, she barely made any appearances in season 1, quite honestly, and still left an impact. So, you know what? I'm fine with that. But yeah, everyone else pretty much appears. In fact, because of episode 4's pairing, some characters end up debuting here as well. And yeah, it's what I was saying before about the mid-season climax, I guess. I'm not sure if that was deliberate or not. It ended up being episode 5. I think it was. But yeah, because it's everyone there, and it starts the decline of Pop and all of those other things. It's important that they all end up playing a part somehow, you know, even Kylie. So it's, yeah, that's the issue. And because I've been working on episode 4 and I didn't have the chance to really manage everyone else in terms of getting everything in beforehand, because I could have gone back to the audio after doing the video of that one scene that I needed in case episode 5 didn't pan out properly. But yeah, now, because I'm past the point of no return, because I've been hurting people anyway. But now, of course, I need to go through like every single person, some of whom haven't really had an appearance in an episode for a long time. And that's another thing. Like, I normally give people 2 weeks, and then if not, the backups come in. But not all the characters have backups, and sometimes the backups don't even come in time. And there was another situation where, for example, with Shorty, I wanted to give them the chance to actually reprise the role that, you know, reprise their debut. And they weren't happy with the lines and everything. which took forever because that was the one exception I made to the backups, which in turn delayed everything else. So yeah, I try to rectify the past mistakes, and the past just keeps coming back to remind me why they were made in the first place. It seems weird to think that some aspects of this were simpler but also way more complicated, because the original I did all by myself within the span of a month, because that's what I always would do. But that's when there was ended up being rushed, and I always had to do directing in person and all those things. So there was just different types of stresses, but they were spread over a much larger period. And because there's now a much larger team, and the fact that most of the people who were around, and that's why they were cast in the first place before, they're not there anymore, and I've been having to go around, and unlike what I normally like to do and give people a chance to audition, I've just been doing closed casting, which I really don't like, but it's been necessary. Necessary right now for Kylie as well, because that's been a consistent problem, really. So yes, I need a bimbo. I'm holding out for a bimbo to the end of the day. She's got to be dumb, and she's got to sound high, and she actually has a part to play. There we go. Right. But yeah. For that reason, I'm actually revamping the manager's position, because actually Maya brought this up a few days ago. That in order to help, she could become a manager, which is weird, because again, the first person to ever resign from the series, becoming a manager for everyone else, trying to do their stuff, seems interesting, especially considering how stressed he actually is. But pairing her up with BB could be interesting. So that's what I'm going to do when I get back. Is, well, first of all, I'm going to eat. I haven't eaten yet. But I'm going to revamp the manager position, and I'm going to actually make that right. So in future, you might be constantly directed by me, and that might be a thing for better or for worse. So voice actors and new editors coming from the future, beware. For everyone else, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. As if you haven't done so already, see you on the 17th. And on that note, until next time, farewell.